Welcome back to the Gruber Companies and the weekly Gruber Morning Show, EV portion. I'm Pete Gruber.
I'm Mark Schaffner. Good morning and welcome.
And our podcast background image today is a news studio with on top of a mountain is what I asked for. And it looks like we've got a beautiful scenery going out outside the windows there. And
it's one of my favorites, Pete. It reminds me a little bit, at least at the very top, of the Matterhorn.
Yeah, good point. That jagged peak, snow-covered. And for those of you on Instagram, you're not able to see our green screen images yet. We're working on it. And if you want the full experience, because we'll be posting some additional images during the podcast, if you go over to YouTube, you can see the images we're going to bring up. One of the news items that we wanted to lead with in this podcast is we published the Lucid video, the financial report, and we struggled with the thumbnail a bit because our video was actually dispelling some of the notions that were floating regarding is Lucid in trouble or not. And so the simplest thing that we could think of with the least amount of words was everybody's wrong.
Yeah, I think that's a good take. It was a lot of fun to do that particular video. I know that I put my opinions together based on the numbers that I saw, and it was looks like it got great reaction. And I look at the success or lack thereof of a video as much for the reaction and comments, both positive and negative, as anything. I think of this video almost like a piece of art. It doesn't matter if somebody likes it or not. It just matters that they thought enough of it to react. And I'm actually quite honored that this has had a lot of comments.
And what a reaction, Mark. This is one of our most popular videos. At one point, I was looking at the stream, how many people were viewing, and it was over 1,200 in 60 minutes in an hour. I don't think we've had a video that's
got
been
up to 1,900.
1,900, right?
In a single hour, yep.
Amazing. And of course, it was controversial. What we find in social media, just like in regular media, is there's a news item, and the other news sources typically don't want to be left out, and they want to scoop it as well. So they regurgitate, oftentimes, what the first person or the first news agency, put out. And that's what it seemed like with this FUD video about Lucid. It was suddenly there were a couple dozen or more that were saying the same thing the same way.
Yeah, and I saw that exact thing. I was looking through articles for this morning and happened to run across a Tesla article that you and I reported on 2.5 months ago, and it's being reported as new news. So you're exactly right. There are people that just they're afraid of missing out on what they perceive to be news, and they're not taking time to actually look at the numbers behind the scenes.
So the whole goal was this, with this effort was, a lot of these smaller influencers don't have financial professionals on staff that can really do a deep dive and a thorough analysis. And it occurred to us, we do have financial professionals both on staff and that we contract. Let's have them take a look at this Lucid report and see if it's really as dire as it is made out to be. And we were surprised that, it actually, there's another perspective and another story, and it set the record straight. You want to elaborate on that? Because you were the forefront person on this.
Oh, yeah. I think the main thing that I saw with looking at the numbers, Lucid is not as bad off and as in dire shape as people were making it out to be. Probably the biggest area that I found to support that was going to look at the other professional investors. When we said that out of the top 25 owners of Lucid, 21 of them are professional investment firms.
Institutions.
They're institutional investors,
sure.
Yes. And not just the PIF fund, but Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, et cetera, et cetera. And when Lucid had their latest stock offering, 19 of those other 20 bought more stock in Lucid, actually increased their percentage of holdings. That to me was probably the strongest message and biggest surprise that I thought.
Yeah, that was a big takeaway. I mean, these smart money buys the dips. Jesse, can you bring up a picture called BOA chart? And the other thing that we got a lot of validation from was the comments on our video. There were, of course, the negative comments that stuck with the FUD. Oh, you guys are way off. This company's going under. It's just a question of time. One said, they remind me of The Walking Dead, and it went on and on. But if you look at this chart, it turns out that the Bank of America has increased its stake in Lucid by 613% from May 12th of this year to August 14th. And this was after the capitalization, was it not?
Yes.
The recapitalization?
Yes, this is about when the recapitalization occurred. So these numbers are going to largely represent the stock that these guys bought as a result of the new stock offering that Lucid put out. So you've got Bank of America sitting there at 613. You go just a little further down, you see Morgan Stanley has a 120% increase. And I don't remember the management one that your name is blocking. I think that's Cotu Management. And again, it's a professional fund, 378%. Everybody just about increased their holdings when that option to increase holdings was available and made available to them.
And again, we're not investments advisors, guys. But again, when there are two stories to be told, we certainly will jump in and present that other story. At this point, BOA, Bank of America, is the 6th largest shareholder, the 5th after the PIF fund, which are the Saudis. And the current value of the BOA position is $109 million at current prices.
Yeah, so that's I thought that was another one of the stories. I wanted to give kind of a shout out to some of the comments too, because I kept it pretty generic as far as the response that I was having. It was not just to one person, because there seemed to be everybody saying the same things. And I thought one of the more interesting responses was from somebody who, frankly, I didn't know they existed yet, because I'm not that open and up on the social media scene as far as what other people are doing. And he accused me of attacking him personally.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. And I thought I just had a good laugh at that one.
Yep. The difference here is smart money versus guys like you and me that are doing day trading and fancy ourselves as savvy investors. I am not. I'm no good at it, although I haven't done badly. But when you have this level of smart money that is continuing to invest in a company like this, something's up.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like you. I'm kind of a set it and forget it type of guy.
Right.
I'm not trying to outsmart anybody here. I'm your average Joe public investor, basically.
So we got a bunch of questions. Why don't we clear some of those? And thank you for joining us, those of you that are chiming in, by the way. YouTube, Skylark Torch says, first person waving with an emoji. Yes, thank you. Also, Skylark Torch is talking about our backdrop. He says Matterhorn. You're right.
Mark, I was actually just thinking the same thing when you called that mountain out. It's like, that looks like a Matterhorn.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Real quick, guys, I want to interject something here. We got Mudassar Abdullah 92 on Instagram saying 50K followers and just 5 views on live. Well, we appreciate you being there with us. And for our Instagram people, you can't see the full show yet. We're still working on improving our Instagram quality. So if you guys want to see the green screen background and see a better camera view, you can go to our YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, basically anywhere but Instagram.
Thank you, Jesse. YouTube, Chinggis Malik Sahid says, hello. I will meet you, Pete Gruber. Big fan on YouTube. One day, I will have a company like Tesla, so look out. And you know what? That is the exact attitude that is required to think outside the box, to believe that you can do something that seems insurmountable and impossible. It is the people that don't listen to impossible that make it possible, and it's that attitude that will make you successful.
I'm looking forward to seeing what company you're running.
Exactly, yes.
In the future. That's very cool.
And the cool part is we may have this conversation again when he has that company.
That's right. That's right. On YouTube, Highlander Apparel says, hi. Highlander is just checking in with us, so good morning. Skylock Torch again on YouTube says, media regurgitation is damaging and annoying. We agree.
Yes. Instagram, shakes_smart_world. He says, what you guys are talking about, I'm unable to get it. Well, stick with us. We're going to be talking about many topics this morning, and it won't just be finances.
No, the main topic that we talk about is electric vehicles, green energy, throw a little bit of fusion nuclear power in every so often, or AI. But it's about all things, more than anything, it's about all things Tesla.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of everything comes back around to that concept.
And that's really what got us started in this space, the EV space, the transition to sustainable energy. We threw up a graph in the last podcast, and there was a Tesla chart or a graph about this big, and then all the other EV manufacturers, even lower than the Tesla graph. And there were a couple, 3 dozen in there. Each one had their own little colored band. It is today the most prevalent and omnipresent EV manufacturer on the planet, and for a very good reason. You know, what to me is interesting is I've been involved with Tesla since, well over 10 years, and watching that company's trajectory through a point where no one believed that EVs were ever going to make any kind of impact, that internal combustion engines ruled, that oil was never going to go away, that EVs were inefficient, expensive, impossible to have any kind of adoption. And to have it change in a decade to this magnitude is just remarkable. No one was expecting it. And you know, I guarantee you, even Elon was not expecting this level of adoption.
I would agree with you there. You know, I was having a conversation just yesterday with somebody, and they were talking about how the ICE vehicle is going to be around forever, and you know, the fossil fuels are not. It's not going to change.
Mm-hmm.
And my take back was, you know, maybe not. But the reality is, you've got governments all over the world now that are pushing this effort forward. It's not just about business. It's not just about, is this a better product or not yet. Although, in my opinion, the EV is a substantially better product, both for its simplicity, its performance, and its efficiency. The EVs are typically far more fuel efficient in their electronic miles per gallon than the ICE equivalents. So they to me, they've reached that tipping point. I'm an early adopter, of course. I'm gonna say that probably. But with the government continuing to push, both in the United States and abroad, I think if we haven't already reached that tipping point, we're very close to doing so.
Absolutely. A few more questions. YouTube, PYGKLB says, good morning from smoke-free Western Oregon. Couldn't have said that last weekend. That's true.
Good morning, and hopefully the remnants of the hurricane that's gone up the West Coast help to moisten things up for you.
Mm-hmm. YouTube, Skylight Torch says, enjoy the fresh air while it lasts. And then Instagram, you break it, I fix 47. Thoughts on Aptera? I've got a launch edition Aptera reserved. Well, personally, I love the car. I think it's the future. I think that when you combine solar with transportation, you have taken this EV conversion to a whole new level. And the in-wheel motors, the 3 wheels, the Jetson-looking space-age type vehicle, I have a healthy respect for that little company, and I sure hope they make it.
I certainly do, too. I love the idea of the car that pairs solar with a battery. Mm-hmm. One of our other listeners, George from the Watch Rich Rebuilds channel, had emailed me this morning and said, You know, have you ever seen anything about this particular RV trailer? It's the same type of thing. It's a trailer that has an 80 kilowatt electric battery, an electric motor to help propel the trailer forward, and 3 kilowatts worth of solar power on it. Essentially, you're able to tow the thing, and the trailer produces enough power to tow it to take off all of that drag on whatever car is towing it. We'll get more into that particular article. I'll share it with you, and maybe we'll talk about it Thursday. But I thought of Aptera, and when I saw this, and thought, yeah, that's going to be the way to go, because you've got that 3 kilowatt solar panels on the top. Man, that's it. That's where it's at.
And it just occurred to me while you were describing that, unlike cars that have sleek curved surfaces, a camper or your standard RV has an enormous amount of surface area on that roof.
Yeah,
and it's flat, and it can be covered with either roofing type, aluminum panels or solar. It works perfectly. Makes perfect sense.
You can cover that whole roof with solar, and you can get a pretty significant charge coming out of that roof off of that camper. This one even had a tip out, and so again, maybe we'll talk about it on Thursday.
Yeah. Smuggler sending us a heart gift. Thank you from TikTok. Welcome from TikTok. YouTube Highlander Apparel. He's back with us. Here's one for you guys. The website CIA Fun Facts. All right, and for our audience, that's one that we'll have to look up.
We'll have to look that one up.
Yeah. Instagram, we did that one already. Instagram, One Hungry Clippo. I think Aptera's awesome. They will get your question, I'm pretty sure. Okay. YouTube, 91 Kit. Keep the YouTube videos coming on Tesla repairs in your shop. And they are, by the way. We do not only do full feature videos these days, but an enormous amount of shorts. And that includes on TikTok, for example. So for those of you that are interested in seeing some of these shorts, Instagram and TikTok are pretty heavily loaded up with our shorts videos.
Yes. By the way, for everybody out here, Pete is recovered from his surgery pretty well.
Yeah.
If we were talking about this last week, you had laser surgery on one eye. The type for the questions now is a little smaller. For me, it's still pretty easy to read, but you're able to easily read them now, and we can get more questions on the page. It's looking pretty good. I'm liking this.
Yeah, they were testing me this morning. In our studio here, we have a large flat screen that's about 15 feet in front of us here. And the problem that I had is in order for me to see close, I had to have readers, and then I couldn't see far away. So what they used to do was I would have my readers, and then I would have very large font in the back there, which was so large that we couldn't cram many questions into it. So today they were actually doing a vision test with me, and they cranked it all the way down to some tiny font, and I read everything. So it's working.
Yeah.
We said read the third line from the bottom left to right, and he got every single letter.
Forward and backwards, yes.
That's right.
And for those of you interested in having laser surgery done, as everyone advised me, there's no pain, a little bit of pressure. I had only one eye done, and it was their recommendation, not ours or mine, to save money. But it was seamless. It was a 3-hour wait because they had so many patients that Friday. And when I got into this large machine, it was 3 minutes at best. And I didn't know if it was successful or not because when I left, it was cloudy and I couldn't see well out of that eye. The following morning, I woke up, I went out on the patio. The sun was just barely coming up, and I looked at the horizon and I said, do I have my glasses on? No, I don't. I was able to see, for the first time in many years, crystal clear horizon. So
that's got to be such a cool feeling.
It is.
Nulver53 on YouTube says, good morning. I can't listen to the rest of the show because wife and I are having breakfast, but I was able to sneak away and say hi.
Well, thank you for joining. Yeah. Enjoy your breakfast, by the way. YouTube Trucker Alistair says, hello today from Tennessee, but whiskey at home. Did you find out if the Roadster parking brake is spring-loaded or electric for ease of transport? You know what? I did not. We're talking about the parking pawl in the Tesla Roadster. And we're going to have to remember that
Yeah,
and
we gotta
actually look
make a
into
note of
that.
that.
Yeah.
What-
For
so
a trucker.
parking brake for roadsters. Yeah.
Yeah, Trucker, we'll definitely make a note of that, and we'll get back with you on that one.
And then Carl Schottke is joining us from LinkedIn. Carl is an old Tesla employee. He was there throughout the Roadster development years, well respected and very knowledgeable. And he's asking, what can you tell us about the Tesla data breach? Well, let's go into that. Apparently, there was a breach of information that was released on 75,000 employees, Tesla employees. And the story on that was that May 10th, a foreign media outlet named Handelsblatt informed Tesla that it had received confidential information and that it was they felt a misappropriation of sensitive customer information. And they promised that they would not be publishing any of this. There were apparently some Social Security numbers in that breach. There were 2 employees identified that were responsible for this breach of information. And in the meantime, Tesla has sued. The equipment that these 2 employees had, computers, were seized, and there is currently some court action taking place. But the good news is that none of this personal information was released, according to the news media outlet that received it.
Yeah, and I know here in the United States, all 50 states, Washington, D.C., Guam, Puerto Rico, but pretty much all the U.S. territories as well, have laws on the books regarding the release of personal information in this way via a data breach. If a company experiences a data breach, they have pretty well set IT protocols that they have to follow. And it sounds like Tesla has done that. Those protocols involve notifying anyone who is possibly related to or going to be impacted by the breach, and offering at least a year's worth of free identity theft protection from that.
Mhm.
And Tesla has done that as well.
Okay. YouTube, Capco says, have you thought about doing an in-depth video of how you perform common repairs and equipment for do-it-yourselfers? Or is your process and equipment a bit proprietary? Well, both of those are true. There are very few things that we hold proprietary, and the most common one is the isolation of resistive cells in the 1,000-pound Tesla Roadster battery pack. It took us literally years to perfect that process, and hundreds of thousands of dollars of engineering time and research and equipment, trial and error. So that's something that we're not comfortable with yet releasing. But the rest of it, if you go to our YouTube channel, Gruber Motors, there are a lot of videos that describe our processes, and the shorts that we talked about, short videos, both on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok, are also rich with that type of information. Whenever we come out with a new process that's not proprietary, we will, the social media team here will grab us and take us over to the to Gruber Motor Company, and we'll shoot short videos and release them usually within days.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of information available, and we don't mind sharing. You know, there's the EV repair effort, especially in the independent space, is one that doesn't have a lot of information yet and a lot of procedures and protocols. And we're really on the forefront of much of that and willing to share the majority of it. So check out those 3 different channels: Instagram, Gruber Motors, TikTok, and YouTube.
You know, and if you're willing to go to the written word as opposed to just videos, there's a plethora of information on the Gruber Motor Company website, both through the newsletters area and there's the Roadster tips and tricks area, and there
Right.
on both of those go into some of the more common repairs and more common issues that you may experience. So not only do you have the video content available, we have written content as well.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. On our website, under the Roadster section, newsletters, and there are probably 36 of them, and they've been evolving since 2018, actually.
Yeah, well, actually, since 2017, because
2017.
when you were on vacation, we pulled up one from 2017 and
Awesome.
went through some information on it.
Mm-hmm. YouTube, Skylark Torch says, I'm suddenly hearing about digital license plates in California. Apparently, Tesla owners are the largest customer base. This product seems like something that should not be made. What do you think?
I've heard about digital license plates before. Have you heard about them, Pete, before?
I have not.
Yeah, digital license plate is typically it's a type of license plate that allows you to download your registration information, and it's almost like whether it's an LED or whether it's more like one of those paperwhite, like the old Nook that Barnes & Noble used to put out type of display. And you can display a picture in your license information, and it actually sits on the car in the place of a standard license plate.
Okay.
It's a very new technology, not very common. I would see that somebody who is interested in electric vehicles would also potentially fit the profile of somebody who would want to spend a few extra, usually it's a couple $100 to buy this plate that has simply a digital display of what your license is.
A thought comes to mind. What are we going to do with all those prisoners that will now be out of work making license plates?
Yeah.
What would be the negative of having a digital license plate, though? Because it sounds like he's not for it. So what would be the negatives of it?
I mean, off the top of my head, I can think of somebody just unplugging their license plate when they want to go commit a crime. And then I guess that's kind of the same as just, unscrewing it, taking it off.
Well, and the idea of potentially getting a couple of digital plates and being able to switch your plate number. Don't know if that's something that would be possible or not, but I could see that being a problem if you could figure out how to hijack the plate and then you're literally stealing somebody else's plate number. They're keeping the plate on their car, but you're driving under their plate number.
Right.
That I could think would be a real big no-no especially for somebody who wants to commit a crime with that digital plate.
Like going through toll roads. Not that those should exist to
yes.
begin with, but that's an easy way around it.
Very confusing for law enforcement as well.
Yeah, it could be.
YouTube, Highlander Apparel. As far as the fresh air goes, when the Canadian wildfire smoke hit us in Ohio, oh boy. Yeah, there was a lot of air pollution that was a result of that. And by the way, we spoke earlier about the transition to sustainable energy in transportation. This is the fundamental reason this is so important, is the planet is definitely off kilter.
2 years ago, I had took a trip to Alaska where my family is at and actually drove a vehicle from Alaska back here to Arizona. This is the year of the Western Canada wildfires 2 years ago. And we went from roughly Prince George, British Columbia, all the way down to about the middle of Nevada. It was 2.5 days, almost 1,000 miles worth of driving. Fire smoke.
Really? Yeah.
That I had never experienced anything as large and intense as that. We actually had to change our route on the way south because the route we were originally going to take was closed because the forest was burning on both sides of the road.
Amazing. At one point there, Jesse perked up and was going to say something.
Well, no, I was just going to say all the people that deny that there's something happening with the climate seems interesting when you have all these things happening, especially here in Arizona, for example. We just had the hottest time in recorded history.
It's a simple word. It's called denial.
Yeah.
All right, YouTube, Highlander Apparel. Sandy did a show on that camper. Oh, okay.
Well, we'll have to look that up then.
Yeah.
I think we need to go back just a little bit. There's a couple there. I think on Musada.
All right, I'm much better with these foreign names. Let me do this one, all right? Mudasara Abdullah, 92.
Abdullah, yeah.
Thank you. I think EV is not efficient until we start making electricity with renewable resources. I disagree with that a little bit, although the concept is sound. The basic reason that I disagree a little bit has to do with the efficiency of making energy at a power plant and then transferring it to an automobile and having the automobile use it versus the efficiency of having fossil fuels being burned in an automobile.
Mm-hmm.
An ICE vehicle is going to be between 25 and at most 35% efficient. The rest of it gets dissipated as heat. Power plants, from the point of generation until the point of delivery, are between 45 and 60% efficient.
Mm-hmm.
So that means if you take the best efficiency from a power plant and the worst from a car, you're getting twice as much usable energy from the same amount of raw material from electrical energy generation as you are from an ICE vehicle burning fossil fuels.
Interesting.
I was about to say my fusion piece, but then read that next one real quick.
All right. Instagram, One Hungry Clippo is talking to Mudassara Abdullah 92. He said, what do you think of nuclear fusion news? Hopefully that will be the real sooner than later. I think we can do a lot more with solar too. Good point. Yes. All right. And that made Jesse happy, by the way. Any of you that want to get a rise out of Jesse over there, talk about fusion, because that is one thing that he holds very close to his heart. Yes, it is the future, as he always says.
You know, the fact that scientists were able to replicate the fusion reaction that they did early this year that caused it was about 110% power output versus power input. The second time was something around 150 or 160% power output. They're making progress.
It's not a fluke. The math is right.
Yes, the math is right. It wasn't a fluke. That's very cool. YouTuber Highlander Apparel. Sandy did a show on the camper, and then Crunch DeGrace Hopper on YouTube. Like number 8 from Newport Beach, SoCal, caught up soon. He gives us the reminder we want to tell everybody. Smash that like button, y'all. Did you see my lucid feedback in reference to their OTAU issues indicating lack of chips, etc., vertical integration?
We did, and it was I believe you commented on the video on YouTube. There's so many of them. I think we're up to like 50 or 60 already.
Yeah, and I think I saw Crunches. There are so many of them. I've forgotten a lot of them. Crunch had commented, and Trucker Alistair commented, and several people that I had not seen before had commented. Tesla Weekender, who I had not seen before, commented. I thought that was a good comment he had.
And there were, of course, issues that affect all of the EV manufacturers. You know, the supply chain problems, especially during COVID, the chip shortages, which were ongoing. And again, it's my prediction is that a company as large as Tesla is going to get a lot more playtime with vendors than a small startup like Lucid, comparatively speaking, anyway. So it's even harder for these smaller producers to try to solve any kind of supply chain problems like this.
Eventually, and it doesn't matter if it's Lucid, if it's Rivian, if it's another new startup like Canoe or Aptera, eventually one of these companies will start to become profitable. Because right now Tesla is the only game in town that's actually making money. And as soon as one of those becomes profitable, their life is going to change. Their world is going to change, because suddenly everybody will say, oh, I want part. Mm-hmm. They're profitable. That's exactly what happened with Tesla.
Exactly. Yes. And by the way, there's one of the other talking points here later on where we talk about Tesla's employees. Well, in fact, it's the next one. Perfect. All right. So talking about Tesla for a moment, during the Roadster days, we've talked to a number of pioneers, and including people like Carl Schottky, who was present just a little while ago with a question. Those are difficult years for Tesla. To build 2,400 of anything is very problematic, in that you're not going to get the minimum or the good prices for your raw materials. Now, as an auto manufacturer, if you can select vendors that have existing product like windshield wiper motors, heater motors, things that are produced in mass quantities. So many of these auto manufacturers use the same OEMs for those types of parts, and the OEMs that are making those are creating large quantities, so the scale of economies are there.
Right.
The problem with the Roadster was so much of it was proprietary, custom, esoteric. And there were no ESS packs being built back then. There was no VMS module. There was no power electronic module 3-phase inverter to convert that DC to AC for that motor. And there certainly were no 3-phase AC induction motors made for automotive applications. So virtually everything that Tesla did was a struggle. And that's part of the reason that they had to go to smaller vendors, many of which are no longer in business. Like you always like to mention, how about the barbecue manufacturer?
That's right, the Taiwanese barbecue manufacturer, and they're the ones that made the PEM covers.
Right. But so those were tough years for Tesla. They've paid their dues. It's behind them now. And one of the things that's a news item here is there's an employee group at Gigafactory Buffalo where they make the autopilot units, and they were pushing for unionization, which Tesla has been attempting to avoid, for ever since day one. And anyway, these employees were fired, and the company claims that the reason that these employees gave for being fired is that they were union organizers is incorrect. These are false allegations. And typically, if you get the rest of the story, there were typically performance problems that were tied to that, but it was a convenient excuse for a union organizer to claim, I don't have a performance problem. It was because I was trying to bring the union in.
Right.
And that, of course, oftentimes gives them some legal recourse as well, right? Or at least it makes good headlines. But anyway, from this article, I was shocked to find out that Tesla currently has 128,000 employees. That's 29,000 more than a year ago. And guess how many job applications they get each year?
Boy, it's like hundreds of thousands of job applications every year.
Or even more than that. 3.6 million job applications. And, I am envious because it's the type of company that everybody wants to go work for.
Right. And at the same time, when it comes to the union employee and performance issues, I think of a story that I was told from a friend, in fact, a former coworker here, his name is Eric, and he talked about his time working at Honeywell, had flown to the East Coast, went to a Honeywell union shop, found that they were making less product but had 3 times as many employees, and the employees were typically paid about 20 to 30% higher than anybody here in Arizona. And he went in and he was there to design a process to help them get stuff out faster. He did that. He went in, designed a process, and then got called on the carpet by the union guys because he said, what you're going to do is going to turn 3 jobs into 1, and we can't allow that.
Exactly, yes.
Well, that's the problem with unions when they get too powerful, and that's the problem with employees who want to unionize. Sometimes, not all the time, they want to disguise their poor performance under the idea of, well, we're trying to unionize, we have our job, and that is not our job.
Right. Or the most recent push, we don't want to work 40 hours a week anymore. We want to work 32 hours a week.
Yes.
The problem with all this is this inefficiency that you mentioned, and we're probably going to get some strong union comments here. Who ends up paying for it? We do, the consumer.
Yeah.
All of these costs have to get passed on by companies like us who don't have deep pockets, and money doesn't grow on trees at companies like ours. We are for profit, and when our labor costs go out of control, we have to pass it on to survive.
That's right. Either your costs rise or you don't survive, and if your costs rise too much, you don't survive anyway.
Yeah.
It's a balancing act that we have to do, and it's on a regular basis.
Like everybody says, unions had there was a solid reason for them at one point in history. No one negates that or doubts that.
Mm-hmm.
But in most categories, they have outlived their usefulness at this point. The most recent one is we've got some incumbent auto manufacturers that are struggling with attempting to transition into electric vehicles, and their survival depends on it.
Right.
And now we have unions that are pushing for 32-hour work weeks, more money, and it's going to, I can't imagine that these incumbents are going to be able to survive with that kind of an onslaught. Not only do they have to now change their production processes, reinvent their engineering talent, reinvent many vendors for these EVs, and somehow try to pivot and transition while keeping the machineries running that are their cash cows, if they even have one. And then we have labor problems on top of that. What does that sound like to you? It doesn't sound sustainable to me.
No, it doesn't sound sustainable, and that's why you see more and more of these businesses, especially manufacturing, going to automation.
Yeah.
Okay, if I'm going to have an employee force of 1,000 people that goes from 40 to 32 hours a week, I've just lost 20% of my force because I've just lost 20% of my time.
Right.
So if I can build robots that will fill in that automation time, that automate, then I'm going to do that because they're available to work that 20%. Now, what happens is that those robots, those automation procedures don't fill in 20% of the time. They fill in 40 or 50 or 60%. And then guess what? The union ends up losing because they've just lost people, because as a company, you don't need the people.
Right.
It's
self-destructive.
We can rant on this for a long time.
YouTube 91 Kit says, is it worth the money to upgrade my 2013 Tesla Model S MCU1 to an MCU2? What we're talking about here is a media control unit, which is the 17-inch screen and the Linux computer behind it. And is it worth doing an upgrade to the MCU2? My take on it would be no. You get some faster internet, you get some better performance, the maps come up a little bit quicker, but all of the cars that we have here still have MCU ones, according to
most of them do. Yeah. Now getting the LTE or the fourth generation cell phone chip that goes into that is not an MCU upgrade, but it does allow you to once again get online connectivity because the 3G chips are no longer useful. And your 2012, 2013, some 2014 Teslas will have that 3G chip as opposed to a 4G. But you don't have to upgrade the entire MCU just to upgrade that one chip.
Good point. YouTube, Highlander Apparel says, I'm so glad to hear you're doing well. Well, thank you. And he's talking about my laser surgery. By the way, Highlander Apparel is one of our regular members in the audience. And I love one of his slogans. It is, kindness is free. And you're absolutely right.
Absolutely. He has another post, though, and I'm a little sad to hear. It says, this is going to be my last podcast viewing. He says, I'll be at my library downloading your notes, though. That's me. I'm a reader. So, Highlander, I'm a reader as well, actually. I'm much more into the books, whether it's audio or written, than videos. So I understand, but we'll miss you.
Yeah, we will miss you, definitely. YouTube, BB and John says, not so nomadic life, or that's part of his name, apparently. Okay. He's talking about digital license plates in California. They are 100% breached already. Well, that's ominous, but yeah.
And I think that's the biggest issue that I see with that is the security.
YouTube to be announced says, good morning, gentlemen. A little late, but I don't think they want to do the license plate because they won't photograph as well as the standard plates. That's an interesting point. The toll roads that Richard was talking about earlier.
Yes. And to be announced, if you don't mind, let's go ahead. He sent us at ev@gruber.com a question about running on a track, and I've got a couple of answers for you on those. I did a little bit of looking up, and I went to Motor Trend, and they had some tips and tricks, regardless of what engine type. It had nothing to do with the engines. That you might be able to do to get a little bit faster track times. So we'll be brief here. First, I'm not surprised that the 21-inch wheels are slower than 19-inch wheels. He mentioned that on the track, that they were a little slower. If you're driving down the highway and you have a car that has 21-inch wheels, you're going to expect between 325 and 350 watts per mile of usage. If you have the 19-inch wheels, you're going to expect about 300 watts per mile of usage. That means that the 19-inch wheels are about 10% more efficient on an energy draw. Even on a short track, that means your 19-inch wheels are going to probably be faster.
Mm-hmm.
So I've learned from personal experience, heavier wheels means slower times. Do what you can to make your wheels lighter. It's going to be exponentially faster. Not only lighter, but thinner wheels. And the Tesla typically has a really wide wheel. If you can find some sort of wheel that's a non-standard, a little bit thinner, a lighter aluminum wheel than what comes stock with the car, you're going to end up getting some faster times. Second, check your front end alignment. Your typical cars on front end alignment have tolerances.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have one side that's on one end of the tolerance band and the other side of your car is on the other end of the tolerance band, you are, for track purposes, out of alignment, and you're going to lose at least a few thousandths, if not up to a couple hundredths on your track time. You got to make sure that your alignment is not within the tolerance of the manufacturer's spec, but precisely to the manufacturer's specification. Finally, just double check your weight. You know, that lighter's faster.
Yeah. Take out the rear seats. Take out the front.
Take out the rear seats. Take out the front. If you don't want to disassemble the car completely, just take out the front liner. You're going to lose about 25 or 30 pounds off of that. Take out the two things in the trunk, the lid basically for that bin that's under the trunk, and that top lid that helps to separate the trunk from the rest of the car. Those together are about another 20 pounds. That's 50, 60 pounds there.
Mm-hmm.
And that'll help you go a little bit faster.
And Pete, real quick, do you remember what Uncle Chet did to his Plaid? He even replaced the seats in it, I think. He did quite a few things to lower the weight in his.
Oh, yeah. He took out a number of components that we just mentioned, that weren't essential to racing. If you're going to go down to quarter-mile strip, you don't need passenger seats, for example.
Yeah.
And as I was telling these guys, back in the day, last century, some of the real serious racers actually used to take the frames of their cars and have them acid dipped to take some metal off. And that could be responsible for 125 pounds of, a weight that was removed. Of course, if you got in an accident, it was a bit thinner, so you had more dings and dents, I would imagine.
Yeah.
But yeah, some of the guys get pretty crazy about, shaving tenths of a second off of their quarter-mile times to make their car the fastest.
So hopefully some of these things help for you to be announced. And thanks for the question. We love when people email us questions and comments offline as well. Send them to ev@gruber.com, and we'll take time to respond.
Right. Now, we've got a conflicting comment here from a YouTuber called Banana Man, and he's saying that Fusion sucks.
Yeah, then he says kidding.
Okay. Could that be the very same person that sits right next to Jesse? Is that possible?
Hey, Pete, we're not disclosing.
Oh, we're not. Okay.
We're not disclosing identities here.
Right.
Okay.
All right, scratch that. You heard nothing. YouTube, BB and John, Not So Nomadic Life says, the grid cannot support EVs at this time. If 405 of the USA when EV, did you guys type that wrong or did that?
No, that's as it came in. I think if 405 of the USA went EV,
okay.
So it couldn't support, the grid couldn't support EVs at this time. If 405, is that 405 million people living in the US?
Or is it 40%?
Or 40% of the
Could be
If
percent.
40% of the USA went EV, the grid could not support EVs. Now, you guys have produced a video on this in the past, so that is not true, correct?
Well, it's
Correct.
inconsistent with the data that we collected at the time that we did the video, which was about, a year or so ago. And we were going into it with the same assumption, by the way, BB and John, that it cannot support it. And we were going to find evidence that that's the case. We were surprised to find that the utilities are keeping up with demand, and that a year ago it was not a problem, and there was enough infrastructure being under construction and being built to continue to support electric vehicles.
They go on to say that coal is the fuel for all EVs, and I have to disagree there. First, many of the plants that are here in the state of Arizona, in fact, many of them are natural gas.
Mm-hmm.
There are no coal fuel plants here in Arizona. The Palo Verde nuclear power plant provides a large portion of Arizona's energy, and that's considered a clean type of energy, even though the radioactivity isn't the best. But, okay, I drive an EV. On the weekends, when I need to charge, I try to make my charging take place between about 9:30 in the morning and 4 in the evening. Why? I have solar.
Mm-hmm.
I know that if I simply plug in my car or schedule my charge to start at 9:30 in the morning, by 4 or 5 in the afternoon, I will have picked up my full charge, and I will have been using my solar panels all during the day in order to facilitate that charge. So I can guarantee that their statement's false simply because I drive an EV. I'm one of those
Mm-hmm.
and I use solar.
And then, of course, you have also other forms of clean creation of electricity. Hydroelectric, for example, is very mechanical, but yet, it captures the kinetic flow of water.
Yeah.
And, of course, there are many more coming now that we have solar and large solar farms being created. We're moving in the right direction.
Real quick, just so you guys know, less than 20% of the entire U.S. is coal. 19.5% is coal. The rest is in renewable or nuclear or some other form of, or like natural gas or some other form of generation.
Yeah, we shut down our coal plant up in northern Arizona, Safford, I think it was, about 10 years ago or so.
Yeah, and it's so coal is still a significant power generating fuel for many areas of the world. It is not necessarily the cleanest, depending on the government that you're at. It's not a particularly clean burning fuel. For example, China, that does not have quite the environmental regulations that much of the rest of the world has an outsized portion of coal for their electrical needs. So coal is still a very highly efficient and effective way of producing electricity, but it's also a very dirty way of doing so.
Mm-hmm. Instagram, Lion's Heart 548-2022 says hi, waving. Thank you for joining us. YouTube, Highlander Apparel says thank you for the fusion info. Go Team Lawrence Labs. All
yes,
right.
go team.
And looks like Instagram, Rahabaker, hi from Turkey. Well, welcome from the other part of the world there.
And then on YouTube, Highlander Apparel again says, yep, on Venderis, I hand converted the unused Cadillac line to Tesla at Bilstein in Hamilton, Ohio.
Oh, really? Okay. We were actually attempting to get Bilstein to support us with shocks for the Tesla Roadster, and found out that they were unable or uninterested. So we do have an update for you there, by the way. The Tesla Roadster shocks that we're having made for us in the Netherlands now are working out marvelously. We have them in a number of cars, and very pleased with the result. In fact, just before this podcast, I spoke to our machine shop. We're actually going to improve the mounting for those shocks as well by creating a new bracket. The old bracket, long story short, there was enough movement where the holes that capture the top of the shock were actually bouncing and wearing out and creating an egg-shaped type of a hole, which then created noise, clanging, and made it inefficient. So we're strengthening that and modifying that to improve that. And the best part is there is currently a Tesla Model S shock in development that we will also be releasing here before too long. And so if you have a Tesla Model S and you want a smoother ride, we're going to be able to help you with that in the future.
That's pretty exciting to me because these shocks from Intrax are some of the best quality shocks I think I've ever seen.
Yeah. Those of you interested, tomorrow we're going to give you a drone fly through at the Intrex factory in the Netherlands. And I watched it this morning and I was amazed. It is an inspiration for cleanliness, organization, professionalism, and just a beautiful building. Well organized, and we'll try to run that tomorrow during the Roadster
During
podcast.
the Roadster one, yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. Ryan Flint on YouTube has a comment for us when we were talking about our rant on unions. He says, and CEOs deserve 400 times more pay? Question. Dr. Bronner seems to be doing fine making a quality product. Brian, I'm not going to try to defend the companies that have the CEOs that make an outsized portion of pay compared to the individual employees. I will say, look at some of these CEOs, and the CEO, if they make a mistake, they could drive $1 billion company into the ground fast. Just look at what happened with JCPenney in retail a few years back. The CEO came in, he did not know retail. He said, we're going to go to very simple flat pricing. It's going to typically be less than our competition, and we're going to sell on price.
Mm-hmm.
And he almost put JCPenney out of business in a year. So the right CEO can bring back, even at 400 times the pay of a standard employee, if they do their job well, that company is actually getting a huge return on its investment in that person, in my opinion. That doesn't mean that the CEO is necessarily worth 400 times more, though, so I'm not going to try to defend that any other way than that.
Yeah.
Well, so he's got a couple more questions, and just if you want to read those next two real quick.
Sure. Let me just chime in one thing, though, about this executive pay. It's free market. It's a free market economics. Some of these very talented people are in great demand, and they will get poached unless a company pays them at these levels.
Yeah.
And we've seen plenty of examples of large corporations that have lost the figureheads and suffered. I mean, Apple was a prime example of that.
Oh, yeah. And there are so many of them over time.
So again, I'm not going to defend whether they're worth it or not, but I can tell you that without them, the corporation would not be as successful.
Yeah. Ryan Flint, he says, continues and says, there's a study about happier workers and bosses in England when they experimented with 32-hour weeks. And then continues to say that we've lost him as a subscriber. There is something to the idea of work and life balance. I'll go on with what I've said in the past. We all have the same 24 hours in a day. We all have the same 7 days in a week. Some people are going to choose to spend more of their time with their families, with their hobbies, with life than they are with work. And they may want to try to go to 40 hours. They might want to go to 32 hours. I have no qualms with somebody who wants to do that. What they're giving up is going to be financial security. The person who chooses to have better financial security is going to sacrifice more of the family or more of the hobbies or more of the other non-income producing activities, and they're going to spend their time with income producing activities. It's neither right nor wrong either way.
Right.
It just is somebody's individual choice, and I will respect the person who wants to work 32 hours as much as the person who wants to work 64 hours in a week. But I'll end up working with the person who works 64 hours in a week.
Sure. Our company here, we have a call center, and we have a commissioned salespeople. I mean, they get a base, they get a salary, but they're commissioned.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a wide range of people in that pool. We have people that want the work-life balance. They would prefer maybe even 32 hours a week.
Mm-hmm.
But like you said, the financial rewards are not there. And, they're happy. They've got a mortgage. They've got a couple of cars. They've got maybe some kids in college. Then we have the overachievers. These are people that once they realize that they can determine their income by how much time they spend on their careers and their jobs, and we allow them to exist within that framework. In other words, we're not kicking them out at 5 o'clock when the bell rings.
Right.
They can work here in the evenings. They can work on the weekends. They can develop their skills, marketable skills, mind you. They may not stay with our company, but they're developing the type of skills that will make them in demand. we're not going to shut the door on either of those individuals. And we allow the environment, or we create the environment within which both of those philosophies can coexist.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I even this morning reading Warren Buffett talking to a magazine about success in an inflationary age. He said the best hedge against inflation is investing in yourself.
Yeah,
because your skills will never be outrun by inflation.
Who's the guy that wrote Think and Grow Rich? Napoleon Hill.
Yeah.
He said there are two ways that you're compensated. One is monetarily, the other is experience. And he says, guess which one is more important?
Yeah, the experience always is.
Real quick, I just want to say, too, to Ryan, it's unfortunate we lost you as a subscriber, but we do encourage differences of opinion here. We want all the different perspectives. If you don't agree with us, that's fine. But you're welcome back anytime. And
Anytime, absolutely.
I think Richard has something too.
I was just going to say, now the key, the goal should be, or is, finding that 32-hour work week while maintaining financial freedom. Mm-hmm. What can you do that's worth that? And of course, there's always going to be an upside. Like, okay, I make $200 an hour now, so technically I just need to work, 20 hours a week, and I'm set. You can run that to the end of, to the end of the rail and work 80 hours a week and just making a dumb amount of money, But as is the case with all things, there is, as Mark said, a give and take. How much of your life are you going to sacrifice for this thing you can't take with you past the grave? Mm-hmm. A lot of people, especially nowadays, are looking at that and saying, I'm not going to take any of this with me, so I don't care. Mm-hmm. I don't want to work myself into the ground for these things. So, Ryan Flint, I understand where you're coming from 100%. I'm more middle of the road, but, there's, that balance thing. A lot more people are thinking about that nowadays, I think.
I love these podcasts. We have such a wide range of opinions and the freedom to express them.
Yeah, definitely.
TikTok, Coco and Sid says, in your experience, how many miles will a 2015 70D battery last before having to replace it? We're talking about a 70 kW dual motor Tesla Model S, I'm assuming 2015.
Yep.
We get asked these predictions all the time, and I wish I had a crystal ball regarding Tesla batteries. We do not. It's the luck of the draw. The majority of Teslas out there are running quite well, going into 100,000 mile plus range territory. Unlike ICE cars, where you have planned obsolescence, there's another way to phrase it, where your engine and your rings and your pistons are going to quit at some point in time. Your transmission is going to fail.
Yeah.
EVs are a bit different. So no crystal ball, folks. It's the luck of the draw, basically.
Well, there are some things that you can do to help your battery to last longer. And I see that Muffin Top had pretty much the exact same question with a 2015 Model S 70. How many miles will I get before I need to replace my battery? Some things that you can do. Temperature kills batteries. The things that cause temperature to go up are having a battery that consistently charges above 90% is Tesla's recommendation.
For the lithium-ion cells.
For the lithium-ion cells. And these Model S's are going to be those lithium-ion batteries. I would say 80% is even better. If you can keep your charge to 80%, when you get your charge below 20%, you're going to be heating your batteries as they discharge. Those things are going to shorten the life of your car eventually. The way that you drive. The person who constantly has the jackrabbit starts, you're putting a lot of pull on that battery. And when you put a lot of pull and you're demanding a lot of energy suddenly on your car, it's going to draw that, but it's going to generate more heat. So those are two of the big things I can think of is on your charge, keep it within those parameters. The IEEE actually recommends as close as you can keep to the top half of your battery range. The more you're able to keep your charge up there, the better it is. So I am all for keeping your car top charged.
Mm-hmm.
It does help the life of your battery.
Thank you, Mark. All right, we've got YouTube. Highlander Apparel says, you guys know I'm German and Scottish. I know you care about Mother Earth. You can listen to for free live streaming. It's Raven's Cave. It's metal rock. Not my thing, however. The side messages about our Mother Earth are. All right. So for those of you interested, that might be something worth looking into.
You know, I have to say my favorite kind of music is music.
Mm-hmm.
I've listened to just about all genres. Seriously, there are some I like better. I like the jazzy. I like more the classical, the stuff like that. But I have a tremendous respect for even the metal rock. There, some of those people that play that are absolute maestros.
Mm-hmm. We've got an endorsement from Instagram. McGaug Daniel says, I don't know if I can speak on a worker, Louis. He's one of our mechanics, by the way, technicians, mechanics over at Gruber Motor Company. She says, he is a very smart and intelligent man. He works hard. Thank you for all your work.
Well, shout out to Louis then.
Yeah.
He does do excellent work for us, and love hearing the kudos come his way.
Give him a little applause.
Yes. I will personally go over there this morning and tell him that he was a star on our podcast and got a strong endorsement from a customer. And thank you for being our customer, by the way.
Highlander Apparel on YouTube has another follow-up. It says, I could not work less than 60. That's how Mom raised us, and we're happy folk. Of course, P.S. kindness is still free.
Let me interject something there. There are two types of work. There is the type of work that you trade dollars for hours for. And unfortunately, on our planet, so many people don't like their jobs. They don't like the company they work for, and they're unhappy, but they feel it's a necessary evil in order to pay the bills. Then there's a second type of individual, and these are people that thoroughly enjoy their work. They look forward to getting up in the morning and going to work because they're making a difference. They are learning new things. They are expanding, growing, find it challenging. They get enormous validation from it. Again, quoting from that book, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, his advice in one chapter of that book is, find that job or create that job, because the rest of your life will be fulfilled and happy versus that drudgery. And I'll give you an example of that. When I worked for Digital Equipment Corporation, by the way, the number 2 computer manufacturer on the planet in the 70s and 80s in the last century, one of our customers was Motorola, a big defense contractor here in Phoenix, Arizona. The type of defense contractor that would grow, expand, and then downsize because the government contracts were unpredictable. They came and went, and their only recourse was to lay off a bunch of people when that happened. In order to get people to work in that insecure environment, they paid well above industry scale, and these people were basically being abused, in my view, but they were getting paid so well they didn't leave. But I remember interfacing with those people, and they were nervous. They were unsure whether they were going to have a job the next day. They were terrified most of the time. When you watch them walking towards you, because they had brake bells and, they were very regimented, and suddenly the halls would fill with employees. Most of them were downcast eyes, not too many laughing or joking, because, again, they were terrified. They had mortgages, kids in college, they had bills to pay, and they never knew when their number was up and they were going to get laid off again. Folks, that is a miserable way to go through life. Find a different job if you're in that mode. It's going to take its toll on you mentally and physically.
Absolutely. I like to joke about it, and Pete, you've heard me say this several times. I tell Pete, I tell others, Pete retired 5 years ago.
He does say that often. Yes.
I say that frequently. And what it is that you got into working with Gruber Motors, and you found a passion that I had never seen before. Even with the years working here beforehand, and as much as you have loved working at Gruber Industries and Gruber Power Services, you're doing your hobby. Now you do what's fun, and you happen to have a great service for the community, and you make some good money doing it.
Including this, by the way, these podcasts, our social media efforts, we are making a difference. We're pushing and promoting the transition of this planet to sustainable energy. And by the way, while we're on that topic, the Sunday morning AI podcast that Jesse do is also, to me, a community service. You know, we would probably prefer to stay home Sunday morning at 10 o'clock, but we come in, and I bring him donuts, by the way. I think that's what's been doing it.
Yep, a little bribe.
French crullers, right? But, you know, again, it's a service to mankind. We are trying to make the transition from where we are now as a society to something that is much higher tech that most people are afraid of. And we're giving a voice.
The thing, Pete, that we do is on that one is just helping people understand. You know, we want to help that transition, obviously, but people just don't even know what AI is or understand it at all. What they don't have a concept of what it's going to do to the world around them until it's too late. So we're trying to help that.
So we're actually a psychiatrist. We're helping them deal with their fears and beginning to get them to open up about it and talk about it. And you know, I have a son. One of them doesn't want anything to do with AI. In fact, he won't even let my granddaughter do anything with Midjourney or, you know, ChatGPT-4. And she's brilliant in school, and it would definitely benefit her. But he has a strict rule that she can't have anything to do with AI because it's scary. We don't know what it's going to do. And, you know, he has the Hollywood version of what the robots are going to do when they come to get us type thing. But that's exactly what we're attempting to dispel and help people embrace new technology. We've been doing it for 40 years in our companies. We love high tech.
We really have.
Just for the record, we are not psychiatrists.
No. We have a disclaimer.
Yeah, we are not psychiatrists. None of us are licensed medical professionals. I did want to say real quick, though, Pete. So what, in the book that I'm reading, A Man's Search for Meaning by
Viktor Frankl.
Viktor Frankl, it's got me thinking a lot about all of, you know, life, right? And I think what you were pointing out is if you have purpose, you're gonna be happy. And it doesn't matter how many hours you work. I mean, that's the point of it, right? If somebody who goes into a machine shop and they don't care about the product they're making and they're whipped around, and like you're saying with the contractor in the past, and you know, you never know when your time's up, type of thing. Like, there's no purpose in that. They're surviving. That's it, right? But then if you find your purpose, right, and you go after it and you start doing that thing, not for the point of making money, but for the point of it being your purpose, you're going to make money anyway, and nothing else is going to really matter. So I can see that for sure.
And you see that so often. People that have a powerful sense of purpose, they may be doing volunteer work. They're not getting paid for it, but they're getting enormous satisfaction and validation from making a difference. And it's not about money.
Yeah, it's about helping a difference.
Yeah.
So Freckles X20 on YouTube says all of Europe is giving up financial security. I understand, because most of Europe is moving toward that 32-hour work week. That's my understanding of it anyway.
I saw something this morning that talks about BRICS, this new attempt at creating a replacement monetary system to the American dollar, and it's Brazil, Russia, and India.
Yes.
And the claim in there was that Europe is now asleep. In fact, they have negative population growth, and the powerhouse that they once were, being a powerful producer of high tech products, including cars for that matter, is gone. They said that. Japan is a nursing home. I mean, these are powerful statements when you think about it, you know. But it's
Europe's asleep, Japan's a nursing home. There's some truth to that.
Yeah. And China is contracting, and some of the financial experts are beginning to talk about that. But my point there being is, civilizations expand and contract. And I would certainly hope that those that are successful, at least during my lifetime, will remain so.
I'm hoping so. Highlander Apparel on YouTube says, at age 58, I'm starting to experience ageism from potential employers. Sad.
Yeah, and that's definitely a huge travesty. What we find is that the different age groups definitely have advantages. And we find that the older workers, although not willing to go out and hunt every day like the younger bucks do, definitely bring a wisdom and a clarity and a consistency that is very valued in companies like ours.
Yeah, it definitely is. So Kevin Van Gelder on TikTok, he says, "Hi, I respect what you do. You give roadsters a second life."
Or third or fourth or fifth, yes. We have gotten so good at it. It's not exactly effortless, and there are constant challenges. But we find it very, very rewarding because this car is an iconic car that really started this whole EV revolution, and it will go down in history as a very important part of this transition. And we're part of
Yes,
it,
it will.
which makes us feel wonderful.
Then Skylark Torch on YouTube says, "I try to keep my lithium-ion battery between 20 and 70%. I keep it plugged in all the time. I send directions before I get in and drive so it can precondition for driving." Skylark, I started that this summer. I had never really given a lot of account to the effects of preconditioning. It is, for me, it's been revolutionary. Saying not only are you getting in and your car is nice and cool and everything, but your car, I found that my car performs better if that battery has had time to precondition and the AC has cooled down that battery a little bit. My car just performs so much better, especially here in the intense Phoenix heat.
Right. YouTube Highlander Apparel says, "I'm sure you use cordless tools. I just switched to flex cordless power tools from Lowe's. I get my veterans discount at Lowe's." Yeah, power tools are wonderful. In fact, we've got a situation now where we're working on our new building that is being renovated for exotic car storage, and there's no electricity there yet, and probably won't be for a couple of 3 months because we had scavengers come through and rip out all the copper. And parts for that, like circuit breaker panels and service entrance boxes and panels and closures, have a long lead time. So we're trying to figure out ways that we're going to be able to work there without electricity. And, this new proliferation of power tools is definitely part of that.
Yeah, and I'm not as familiar with the Flex brand, but I know that Lowe's has a lot of different very good brands of power tools that they have. So and they use those same lithium-ion cells that we use in the cars as well.
So a couple of news items here. We should probably get back into that. It's 11:16. We'll probably run another 10 minutes or so.
Yeah, about that.
Honda and Acura have made their decision regarding the adoption of the NACS standard, the Tesla Trident connector, as we call it. And, it's no surprise when we saw Ford initially announce that they were adopting. We had this mental image of a rack of dominoes on a table, and we knew that they were just going to fall one right after the other, and they came quickly. GM number 2 or number 3. So one of the reasons that they're doing this is Honda's next 2 EVs, which are the Prologue under its brand, the ZDX, also the ZDX under Acura, will share GM's architecture. And I cut off part of my, there we go, which is known as the Ultium platform. And again, this is a smart move. We were talking about Fisker last podcast, availing themselves of contract manufacturers rather than developing all of their own capabilities regarding their manufacturing processes.
Right.
Why not go to manufacturers that are already making successfully proven, time-tested parts and use those for your project?
Yeah, and why would you not go to the charging network that's known to be both the largest and most reliable network in the nation?
Right.
And you can just go and start using it. You don't have to put any money into it. I think General Motors said that they were going to save $750 million on a build-out by going to the NACS standard.
Right. It was actually Jay Joseph, who is the Honda's VP of Sustainability and Business Development, that said, if you look at what's so great about Tesla's supercharger network, it's the maintenance, or lack of in this case. They fix it if there's anything wrong, and they fix it fast. And he didn't mention names about the other charging standards that are having difficulties, but we know who they are. He says that Tesla has long garnered a reputation for having the most reliable and effective charging network of all of the companies. And they continue to expand the supercharger footprint every quarter, making them more available in different parts of the world. So it made perfect sense for these two major car companies to adopt something that's already running, working, reliable, and will be universally accepted.
Yeah. If I'm a Tesla employee, especially if I'm a Tesla employee that's working with these chargers, every article like this makes me smile.
Mm-hmm.
Because Tesla now wants everybody to win on the EV landscape, especially the next people, because everybody who wins causes Tesla to win.
Mm-hmm.
Their ability to have that support network. Again, Tesla had to be the pioneer because nobody was doing it. There was no standard. They decided to make their standard and go forward.
Right.
And one thing I think people skip over, the Electrify America, how it has the government funding. You got Biden trying to build 10,000 or up to 50,000 chargers. People chose Tesla anyway, even though the government's backing Electrify America. So that says something too.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
And of course, since you've now mentioned the name, I think there were some technical problems with the Electrify America system, such as pickup trucks catching on fire, perhaps.
Yeah, there was a number of Ford Lightnings were getting bricked plugging into those things.
Yeah, that's frightening to think of. I'm going to go drive my EV, supposedly get it charged, and when I come back 15 minutes later, my EV, not only did it not charge, it will never charge again, and I have to replace my battery. Yeah. Somebody else is going to have to pay.
Yeah, very disconcerting, to say the least. So if you can throw up a picture, Jesse, it's the Rimac Nevera front. We'll start with that. So for those of you in the auto world, you know that Rimac is a supercar manufacturer, and they have an EV that just broke a record. And you're familiar with the racetrack outside of Nuremberg, Germany, called the Nürburgring, or the Ring for short, since that's a tough word for most people to say. It has an umlaut in it, the U with the two little dots.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a tough one. So it did a lap record, creating a record for electric vehicles, beating the last record holder by 20 seconds. Now, I didn't put in here who the last EV was that did this. Does anybody know? Was it the Plaid, maybe Tesla?
Tesla did it, then I think the Sapphire maybe have done it too. I'm not sure though.
All right.
The Lucid.
Now, in all fairness, these the two that you mentioned are four-door grocery getter sedans that are extremely fast, of course.
Mm-hmm.
This Rimac vehicle is a race car. It's a two-seater. It's low to the ground. It should do better than one of these other types of vehicles. But anyway, the time that it was able to log was 7 minutes and 5 seconds. And the others, by 20 seconds, so 7:25 would be the last record holder. This Hyper GT car, the Rimac, is being produced by a Croatian company, and the Ring is a pretty grueling track in that it's very similar to ultimate driving roads. It's not straight. There are a lot of twists and turns. There's some elevation changes, all of that. And those guys over there, they race rain, sun, shine, snow, you name it. And it's a very popular track. You can take virtually any car you want on it. So a lot of people with regular passenger cars will do the Ring just to prove that they've done it. I mean, if I was over there, that's what I would be doing. Yeah. So what they also did was they had a Rimac at Pebble Beach in Monterey, California. Pebble Beach is that exclusive event every year where the exotic car people get together, and they have events, they have judging events. In fact, one of my friends here, Steve Morovic, who runs a Lamborghini shop not too far from us, is there as a judge, and I see his posts almost every day on Facebook. He's standing there with a fancy clipboard and, by some beautiful cars. And he's definitely a knowledgeable judge because he's one of the guys that's actually building out these types of cars for the judging effort.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Which we'll show you here in a moment, one of the cars that he did. But what was interesting about this is a $2.4 million car, the Rimac Nevera. And once it won this track record, all 12 of them sold out. So they're now off the market, and they're going to either have to build more or they continue to go up in value.
Wow.
Now, some history here. In 2008, Dodge created the Dodge Viper, which was a deviation from their normal passenger cars. And they also developed a track version of the Viper, which was called the ACR. So the Dodge Viper ACR 2008. I happened to buy one of those in 2010. And it was a true race car. I have another image for you to pop up there, Jesse. It's the 2008 ACR Viper. There we go. And what you'll see there is a black Viper with some wings on it, and I'll explain what those do and what Dodge then did once they realized they had a winning track car. This is my car. It has dive planes in the front, which create 150 pounds of downforce at 150 miles an hour. Now, this is a 200-mile-an-hour car, so 150 is basically exercising it. In fact, I remember in my top gear, and I think it was a 7-gear box, if I was idling, I was doing 75 miles an hour at idle.
Wow.
In the highest gear. In the back there, you see I've got my trunk open, and there's a gigantic wing back there, carbon fiber. This wing in the back creates 1,000 pounds of downforce at 150 miles an hour. And that's precisely what made this such a great track car, because it hugs the road. I remember driving this car, and you get into, it was kind of boring until you got into triple-digit speeds. But at that point, it would just hunker down, hug that pavement, and you could corner like nobody's business.
Wow.
So Dodge recognized in 2008 that they had a winner. So they began to ship the 2008 Dodge ACR Viper to all the tracks around the world to beat the track records. And they actually held that year 26 track records. I don't think that's ever been replicated. But the time that they set in 2008 was 7 minutes and 22 seconds. There we go. And that at that point was the record-breaking run on that ring. Later on, a number of other cars broke that record. The Corvette ZR1 came to the ring with Michelin Pilot Sport Cup tires, and it beat the record, laying down a blazingly fast 7:19, so 7 minutes 19 seconds. 3 seconds faster, basically. Then a $400,000 special Nürburgring edition Lexus LFA set down another track time of 7:14, which then held for some time. And this is for internal combustion engine production cars, mind you. So for this Rimac Nevera to beat that was pretty significant, but the real track record on the ring currently is 7 minutes and 3 seconds, and that was set by, again, a Dodge ACR X Viper in 2010. So anyway, there you have it. One of these days, somebody is going to get under 7 minutes on this track, and that'll be quite noteworthy.
That'll be something else. The biggest thing that I saw with that article is that Rimac is advertising their car not as a race car, as a track car like the Dodge.
Exactly.
It's a GT. And I thought, well, okay, so let me educate myself a little bit on some of the difference between the Grand Touring model and the true sports car. Sports cars are almost always just two-seaters. They don't want the extra weight. A GT, although not always, is typically a 2x2. In other words, they have a back seat, even if that back seat is so small that your toddler granddaughter is the only person that can fit in. It's typically a little bit larger. A sports car is about weight. They're light. They don't have a lot of features. They don't have a lot of extras. where a GT will have more extras. They'll have the cruise control modules. They'll have the other luxury components like motors for the windows instead of a roll up or something like that. Your sports car is going to typically have very stiff suspension because at the kind of speeds that the sports car has, you need to have really stiff suspension.
Responsive.
Very responsive, yes. The GT, while it is built for speed, it is built as much for luxury as speed. So the suspension and handling are more geared toward comfort at higher speeds, but throughout the speed range than a sports car, which is really built just to be able to hold the track. And then, of course, the engine, or in this case, for an EV, the EV motor, sports car, it's all about the speed. It's going to be as big an engine as you can get into the car. And for a GT, the engine is designed to maintain high speeds for long distances, not just be a sprinter, as it were, but be more of a marathoner. So that means that this Rimac, if these guys redesigned the Rimac to be truly a track car instead of a grand touring car, I'll bet that 7 minutes could fall.
Could be. The way they describe, by the way, this Rimac was, what makes it so special, they say, is that it can achieve that kind of speed on a track when it's been developed to be a comfortable Hyper GT for the road, like you mentioned. They call it a well-rounded piece of engineering and design, gentle and usable in the city, thrilling to drive on twisting B roads, comfortable over long distances, and devastatingly fast on the track. You know, there's always that compromise. My 2008 the 2008 ACR Dodge Viper had no power steering. There were no power brakes. It was basically you and your skills, and it would get sideways on you up to third gear on asphalt if you weren't careful. So you really had to learn to drive this car. And yeah, some of these other cars that you mentioned, they begin to put some creature comforts in there. It did, things like the automatic windows and things like that. And the early racers, those were actually plexiglass to shave weight.
Sure. Totally makes sense.
Anyway, the Rimac Navara, for those of you that have $2.4 million, it looks like you can't buy one currently anyway, but if they ever reproduce it or someone's willing to sell theirs, you could get one of these super fast Hyper EV cars.
Okay, we're over time. If you guys want to, we got quite a few questions that came in.
All right, let's do some questions. YouTube, Skylark Torch. I might think about my Tesla battery more than most people. I look forward to getting a home battery so I can use direct DC charging one day.
That would be an interesting concept. I had not heard about using a home battery like a Powerwall for direct DC charging. I think it exists, though, just like that. And Skylark Torch follows up with Highlander's comment. He says, I've been getting DeWalt tools. Even my lawnmower is a DeWalt lithium ion. I try to charge it using USB from my small solar generator when I can. DC to DC avoids some conversion losses.
Good point. Highlander Apparel from YouTube, he says, not me. At the stamping plant, I ride around in my cell-playing Muslim music from Morocco. I made many friends.
Oh, that's very cool. Then he follows up. It says, I'm on Facebook as Scott Buchanan, just joined X.
Okay. For those of you that want to look up Highlander Apparel.
On YouTube, Danny Ames says, this book is short, but it's helped me with money. It's called The 7 Laws of Money, and it's by Mike Phillips. Mike is a Bank of America banker. Google it up. I certainly will.
Good advice. Thank you. YouTube, Highlander Apparel says, well said about the Chargers, Mark. P.S. Hi to the production team.
Well,
all right,
thank
guys.
you. Thank you.
Hello, Highlander.
YouTube, Highlander Apparel again. He says, to Skylark now. I also have DeWalt, Porter Cable, and Black & Decker. Wish I had solar panels. These Flex are great.
On YouTube, Crunch to Grace Hopper. I aspire to tow a light ship behind my Aptera FE 40 kilowatt hour. If it has 4-wheel differential power to minimize porpoising, to handle the tongue burdens, plus prevent snaking. You know, Crunch, he's right. because that trailer has its own motor to power it, you could take a little tiny car like an Aptera, as long as there's some sort of braking on the trailer itself.
Right.
A little tiny car like an Aptera could haul this great big RV trailer. Yeah.
That'd be a fun
So
video,
we're
wouldn't it?
definitely
Yeah.
going to look at the Lightship here, probably on Thursday.
Yeah. YouTube, Highlander Apparel, Viper, Lear Seating off 6 Mile in Detroit. I think you guessed, as a contract employee, I work for everyone except the Chinese. The Japanese loved me, and I'd sit on the concrete floor converting pictures.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
All right. We also had Hey Jimmy 911 on TikTok. He shared our live and encouraged people to join. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you very much for promoting us. So it looks like we're wrapping up here. I think we've got more points that we'll cover in the Thursday podcast.
Yep.
Regarding EV related. Tomorrow we've got some good Tesla Roadster information. And again, if you don't have one, it doesn't matter. You can join us. We try to confine the comments to Tesla Roadster, and we look forward to you joining us for both of those podcasts as well.
Yes. So join us tomorrow, 10 o'clock. Join us for this podcast again on Thursday. And not to forget, Sunday morning, 10 o'clock. Oh, and by the way, guys, we've been hearing this banging sound behind us throughout the entire podcast. We are in a live warehouse production area. And so what you have heard are the people building pallets.
Right.
So that we can be shipping product. So, well, thank you guys again.
Yeah, I didn't